So hello, can everybody hear me? Yeah. Well, my name is Jonathan Tidrick. I'm 48 years old. I grew up in a little town called Leonard, Michigan. I don't know if anybody knows where that is. It's a stop sign pretty much, and that's where I was born and raised most of my life. This is hard for me, honestly. So I need to take a breath here. I don't want to do this. I don't want to do this. I'd rather be at home. There's a bunch of stuff I'd rather do, but it's not about me, and I got to step outside myself and listen to the Spirit, because when I don't, it's not good. When I fight the Spirit pulling me one way and take my will back, bad things happen in my life, and I don't like that. So bear with me. I'm a work in progress. I was born July 2nd, 1973, in Pontiac, Michigan, and I was the fourth boy in my family, and my mom was sick of having boys, honestly. I'd like to add that I'm going to say some things. My mother's still alive, and she's not that person anymore, and I know it pains her right now for me to be up here. I just know it in my heart that some things are going to come out that she's not proud of, and it's not her anymore. And if she's listening, I just want her to know that the Lord has made her new again, and I see it, and everyone sees it, and the past doesn't have to define you, So it's going to be hard for me and her, and this isn't going to be easy for my family, but it has to be done, so I'm going to do it. So it wasn't a good family. My father was an abusive alcoholic, but giant man, 6'2", 330 pounds. And he wasn't a good man, wasn't a good father at that time. I went to Liberty Baptist Church in Metamora, Michigan. We would go there every day, sometimes 7 days a week. I went to school there. I wanted to be a pastor. That was what I wanted to do with my life. I went to Hiles-Anderson College when I was a young teen to see what it was like and see what I'd be up in for, And we were raised strict Baptist. Not like here. We wouldn't have had any of this dancing and singing, and there were pieces of the wood missing on the pulpit, and it had pieces of knuckle on it, and blood and fire and brimstone. And I met the Lord there, not through man, not through a pastor, not through the youth pastors there, but I met the Lord through my heart in that place, and I was saved, and I'll never forget the day. It wasn't from a man or anything. I was just led to the Lord, held me. It was not that I can't explain it. If you've been there, you understand. It was a change in my soul. I was being raped and tortured at home by my older brother. He ended up doing 15 years in prison in this area here, actually, raping and torturing another little boy. When they got his computer, he had plans to dismember this child and bury him, which was no surprise to me for what he did to my mind and polluted my mind and convinced me I was something I wasn't, convinced me everybody else in my life was something they weren't. I was unwanted, I was hated. And then the church I went to reinforced that. I was a homosexual because I had long hair. I had an earring, and God didn't want me. And I was told that by the youth pastors. We had a game in the church there, right on M24. I'm sure everyone's driven past the church on M24 in Metamora. But the front of the pulpit was safe, and the front door was safe. In between was the entire church. On Tuesday night was game night, and they cut a piece of garden hose off. It was about this long. And the pastor or the youth pastor got that hose, and all the kids, if you weren't in that safe zone, you got beat with that hose. And everything that was going on in my life at that time, I couldn't tell anybody. I did tell people, honestly. I'm not going to bring a lot of the detail up. It's painful for people that are still around it, and I was berated and physically assaulted for trying to get help, And I was reinforced that I deserved it in my mind and my heart, that I was unwanted and unloved. So it was rough for me. My grades fell. I was failing every class. I fell behind in everything. I was in trouble all the time, which would cause more physical abuse at home. I was had to, feed the animals in the morning, and I smelled like poop a lot at school, so I got some nicknames, and it was rough for me growing up. So I was taught by my father that violence was the answer. You're not a man if you can't fight, if you can't. That's what I was raised to believe. So I'm going to skip a whole bunch of stuff. Let me tell you, it wasn't good, okay? And skip to, I think, 16. I just got my driver's license. This was 1988. I was telling a kid the other day, I was like, yeah, I took my driving test in an 88 Chevy pickup truck. And he was like, man, I love them old cars. Well, this is a brand new car off the lot. This was my dad's brand new truck, bought like a week before. It wasn't an old car, so. But I'd turned to drinking and drugs. I wasn't accepted by the normal kids or the cool kids or the normal people. I was accepted by the fringes, I turned to the heavy metal kids, I wanted to have my long hair kid. They accepted me for who I was, and that's what I wanted to be, So I turned to drinking and drugs early on. I think I was maybe 13 the first time I woke up on a sidewalk and pee pants and vomit, alcohol poisoning. And it was just a trend that didn't stop for most of my life. I was 16 anyway, and I was drunk. And my dad and I, he'd broken every bone in my body, it seems like. I've been knocked out. I have brain scarring right now. I'm not good with numbers or names or a lot of things, but that wasn't just my father. So we got into it, and we got in a fight. He put me through a bathroom door. We had moved to Lapeer, Michigan. He hit me in the face, and I went through the bathroom door, and it broke the door off the hinges, and I hit the bathroom counter in my back. And that was enough for me. I said, okay, he's twice my size, probably a 90-pound kid then, little kid, skinny. Somehow I got it to, found the strength to rush him and went low and picked this 330-pound man up from 90 pounds from behind his knees in the air and dropped him on his back. Knocked the wind out of him, and there was an 8-pack of glass Mountain Dew bottles at the fridge, and I won. I cheated, but, there's no cheating when you're 90 pounds, But anyways, that was a defining moment for me. I was a man. I'd beaten my father. He picked me up from jail. I ended up in jail over this. My mom had to call the police. I wasn't going to kill him. And he picked me up from jail. His hands were bandaged. His head was bandaged. He had broken both of his hands in that fight. And he said, that's it for you. I was like, good. He's like, you're a man. I moved out. And I started framing houses. I dropped out of school. The money was good, and I started drinking as a career. And that's all I did for many years. Before I was 21, I had 13 minor in possession of alcohol charges. Because of my past, I was suicidally depressed because of my childhood, because of everything and the shame and guilt I felt, and the confusion and the abandonment and not having a father. My father never played catch, never took us anything, none of that. He was either at work or he was at home. When he was at home, which was rare, he was violent. I would pretend sleeping when I was a kid in the car, so my dad would carry me in and I could have a minute, So I turned to the alcohol, and that's what I did. I'd gotten fights because that's what men do. I was with multiple women. I don't even want to put a number on it, but let me tell you, it's not anything to be proud of. Because that's what a man do. I'm not a homosexual. I'm not what is happening to me at home. I can fight. I'm not afraid of anybody. I'll fight a big guy, a little guy, 3 guys, 4 guys. I don't care. Let's go. Let's do this. I can drink with the best of them. I was having alcohol poisoning all the time. I was experimenting with drugs, psychedelics, LSD, all that, and everything there was. I was doing it in school, in high school. I'd been kicked out of Lapeer East High School, failing every single class. They sent me to alternative ed high school, where you actually had cigarette breaks in between classes. So that was for me, and plus all the kids that were struggling too were there, and my people. So we all helped each other get drunk and get high every day, and I ended up getting kicked out of that school also, and started framing with my cousin. I moved on site. Actually, I skipped an important part here. I couldn't take it anymore. I was about 16. Maybe I was just turned 17, actually. And I put a 12 gauge to the side of my head, and I pulled the trigger in my parents' living room. And I thought I was dead when I came to. My dog was licking my face. It had blown my eardrum, partially blinded me, and gave me a concussion. And I was staring at a hole in the ceiling. And my dog was licking my face, Casey, my German Shepherd. I still miss that dog a lot, by the way. But I was a good dog. But anyway, when Dad would try to beat me, he'd have to lock the dog in the door, in another room, because the dog would, that was my best friend. But I was so upset that the blast had not woken anybody in my family. They were all still asleep. And when I started to regain my senses and could walk again, and I attacked my brother and my father in their sleep, and I ended up in jail. That was my first major charge. I got a felony. Discharging a firearm in city limits was waiting for me when I got out of the psych ward. Head still bandaged, and that was my road to defying authority. I said, well, everybody in my life that's an authority figure. These pastors, my parents, my family, my fathers, my brothers, the police, the judges, they're all against me, God's against me. I started my war with God. I was like, well, if this is what you're going to let happen to me, then I'm going to live against you. And I did that for a lot of years. It wasn't my first, that was my first suicide attempt, but it was not my last. And it's just by the grace of God. And people say there's no miracles. There's no way you can take a 12 gauge and put it in your head and pull the trigger and live through it. And I lived through it. There was a hole this big in the ceiling, about the size of a 12 gauge barrel, maybe a little bigger in the ceiling above my head, 8 feet. In the carpet above that was a hole about this big in the second floor. And then next to my dad's head where he was sleeping was a spray of BBs about this big. And thank God nobody was hurt except me, but I was in a self-destructive state. Horrible, self-destructive. I wanted to die. I didn't think I deserved to live, and it was, I was convinced of it. I was saved, though, and I was fighting everything. The Holy Spirit would speak to me all the time, and I would ignore him. I would do exactly the opposite. I would try everything. I would run. I've been all over the country, I made some really good friends, regardless of all this. I made some good friends who were very supportive. We drank a lot together. They weren't good Christian friends, but they were good-hearted people. We became very close. And spent a lot of time together. Almost every one of them is dead today. I'm 48 years old. Most of those people died far younger than I did. And I watched them. Some of them die up close. Well, let's fast forward. I met a girl at a party, and one thing led to the other. We had our first baby, Megan, and that changed the world for me. That's when I realized what life was all about. It changed. I hadn't known love until I saw that little girl, and I saw her face and held her the first time. But it wasn't enough for me. I think there was a fight. I can't remember. There was a big fight. I got beat up. It wasn't the first time. I got beat up by a bunch of guys, and I ran to California Los Angeles, and I discovered crystal meth out there, and alcohol, of course, and I don't know how I lived through that journey out there either. And I abandoned my at this time I had 2 children, Megan and Ariel. They were, I think, about 5 and 6 or so, and I took off for a year. And when I came back, I had warrants for everything, so I ended up in jail. I've been in jail in Lapeer County, I think, 35 times. I think I have the record there. It's nothing to be proud of, but the record in Lapeer County Jail for people being locked up. They have problems getting me commissary when I go. I'm still in trouble with the court, and I was in recently. You'll hear that in a second. But they can't even get me commissary to use a computer because of a 4-digit number. They're like, we don't even know how to use that number. And the system doesn't even recognize that. I've been going to jail since I was a 16-year-old kid. I kept running from the Lord, running from my past. I kept bucking authority because they were responsible for everything that happened in my life, The pastors. The pastor, by the way, Gerald Ney of Liberty Baptist Church, they let him out of prison just long enough to die when his kidneys and livers were failing. I think he lived outside of prison for maybe a couple months. This man who was calling me all these names and physically assaulting me and all this had been molesting little girls in the church under the guise of piano lessons. So all these people that said they were this to me in my life. My father said he was this at church. He was a different person at church than he was even in the car ride on the way home. They were all fake to me. I didn't want anything to do with them. I didn't want anything to do with the church, especially the Baptists, no offense. I didn't want anything to do with the church. I didn't want anything to do with the pastors. I didn't want to do with anybody in authority. I just thought they were all fake, lying, and out to get me. So I lived my life that way. So I had 2 little girls, and then I had 3 little boys with another woman, twin boys, and another boy, and they're all doing well. Going to college, and we have a strained relationship because of my past, but it's coming together. I know it will. The Lord, I pray a lot, and I meditate a lot on things, and I know the Lord is answering my prayers with my other children. So there's not time really for the whole story of my life. I've been through a lot. I broke my neck. I have a cadaver vertebrae here at C5 and titanium rods here down. I severed my Achilles tendon. It's bolted to my heel. Both my knees had surgery. My shoulder. I've been shot, stabbed, run over, left for dead. I was 16 years old. I had my nose. I was beaten unconscious at a party in Lapeer and had my nose bitten off my face and surgically reattached. I had this entire part of my face shattered. This is all different fights, suicide attempts, drunk, car accidents. I was the crazy guy at parties, I was the guy, John will do it, John will jump through the bonfire. John will jump a truck over the pond. John will do it. John will build a bomb and light it with a 1-inch fuse. I did not care if I lived or died. I would rather be dead. So, my liver and kidneys were failing. I was living with my buddy Jody, my best friend in the world. We went to California together. We've been all over the country together, Jody and I. We were carpenters together. We went and remodeled Walmart all over the country, making good money, got drunk together, used together. And anyways, I'm going to skip some stuff. I had liver and kidney failure around here this time. I was dying. I was in ICU in Lapeer, and they said he's not going to make it. He's dying. They can't figure out what's going on, but he's not going to make it. And this was in 2011. So my 3 boys, their mother took them up to say goodbye to me in ICU. And I looked at my youngest son at the time, Benjamin, the foot of my bed in the hospital. Say goodbye to his dad, Now, it wasn't my dad. I wasn't my dad. I didn't beat my kids. I loved my kids. I wasn't a good father. I wasn't a good example. And I had a lot of shame and guilt for that. I had a lot of shame and guilt for everything. But that boy's eyes, man, 2011, I said, that's enough. After they left, I said, that's enough. Nobody knew I was pushing my IV pole into the bathroom. I had a main line. I didn't need to find a vein anymore. I was shooting heroin into my IV. Liver and kidneys failing. My friends were bringing me liquor up to the ICU. I was drinking it. And while I was reserved to death, and I wasn't afraid. I was kind of relieved that it was the end, until I saw my son's eyes. So I checked myself into rehab. And I was, I think, one of the longest people in Sacred Heart rehab in detox. They actually had to put my bed out in the nurse's station in the hallway with the monitors going in so they could check me 24/7. I would go out to have a smoke break and I would throw up. I was shaking, lost control of my bodily functions. I was violently ill. But I made it through it. And I started going to NA, Narcotics Anonymous, and I was clean for a long time, but I wasn't with the Lord. I said I was, because it was in the literature. I did the bare minimum, but I was mad at the Lord. I was clean for years. I ran the NA meetings. I had the keys to the churches. But I was not living right. I was ignoring the Lord, and I was ignoring the voice. I was ignoring the Holy Spirit. I was still proving I was a man by seeing how many women I could be with, how many men I could fight. I was clean. That was it. That was all. I wasn't using. I was judging other people that were using, driving them away from the meetings, being angry, calling people horrible things just for disagreeing with me. Anyone to disagree, anything, I was, and I'm running the meeting. People are looking up to me. I was still lost. One day, prettiest girl I ever saw in my life come walking down the soup kitchen basement steps where we had our meetings. And people don't believe in love at first sight or anything, I was going to be single the rest of my life. I loved it. Are you kidding? I'm running the NA meetings. These new girls are coming in all the time. Everything's fine. Well, this girl turned out to be the one. I've never been married through everything I've been through. So we got together, and it wasn't all roses. We started using together. I was going through all these surgeries for my neck and my knee, and I started getting Vicodin from the doctor, which was needed, but I started abusing it. And then I ran out, and I'll remember the day I relapsed. My wife, she wasn't my wife at the time. We were at the liquor store, and I was like, man, I'm in so much pain. A pint of Jim Beam sure would be good right now. And she said, well, you deserve it. Go ahead. That's all it took. One person to co-sign that I cared about it, and that was on. I was drinking again. She came from a life of, I asked her if I could talk about this, so this is okay. She came from a life in Saginaw where she didn't have a father, where she was abused, not by her family, but she was a prostitute. She was a stripper at all the clubs. She did private parties. She was a heroin addict. And she was in recovery. And 2 babies changing each other's diapers. There's nothing happening. I just make a mess, So it was bad. Bad things came, and we both got clean again together. I went back to rehab. I made her go back to rehab. And I started talking to the Lord more. I'm like, this is too much. Now I'm watching people I care about suffer because of me, because of each other, I said, well, Lord, I've never been married, I told you. I won't do it. If you'll bless this union and bless this relationship, I'll do it. I'll put my hand on the Bible. I'll do what you said. And I made that promise to the Lord. It's one of the first times I made a promise to the Lord since I was a child. Little did I know how hard that promise would be to keep. I made those vows, my hand on the Bible, to my wife and to the Lord, and I intended to keep them. So, anyway, it was rough. We struggled, both of us, with using. We struggled with everything. We moved to Saginaw. We ended up getting I was working, I think, in Myrtle Beach, South Carolina, building a hotel, remodeling a hotel on the water. And we just had my daughter, Willow, and I flew them down for Christmas. And she opened the top drawer. I was managing. I was running a whole crew. I was a lead guy. Everybody was under me. And she opened my top dresser drawer, and I had, I think, 15 or 16 fifths of liquor. And that's how I was getting through the days. I'm like, I'm not taking pain meds or opiates, but I'm drinking all day, every day. So I snapped on that, and physically, I beat up a few guys that worked for me. So of course, I'm done. There's a plane ticket waiting for me in the morning. I come back to Saginaw, and I think it can't get worse, It was getting worse, My wife was back into her addictions. She was back into dancing. She was back into private parties. So I begged the Lord, begged him. This is before this all happened after we were married also. But we got married, and I'm going to keep my vows. We got a big, huge house. Everything's going pretty good. I got this big, huge house. Besides, I'm just learning to accept that, hey, whatever. This is how it is. I'm going to be a drunk. We had a big house in Saginaw, a real big, nice house. It's been in the newspaper a few times. This is a big house. So it's like 9,000 square feet, 3 stories, big, giant basement, full bar, fireplaces everywhere. Big garage, I got everything I need. I can afford whatever. I'm going to skip some more stuff too because it's on my heart right now to do something. So that little girl I had changed my life, Megan, my first baby. She'd had a son, and Carter, great kid, and she was struggling with addiction herself, was drinking a lot, and coming back and forth. I let her move in with me, and I was trying to stay sober, and I found some liquor under her bed and this and that, and it came to a head, and we both, I kicked her out on you're gone, get out, go back to your mom's, or whatever you got to do, I don't care. She was making poor choices, and I was judging her. She was making better choices than I made my entire life, even though they were poor choices. And I was judging her because that's just how I was raised, and I was not supportive. So I'm living in Saginaw. That best friend, Jody, who, we've been everywhere together since we were young teenagers, done everything. He posted on Facebook, done, one word, done. And he just went through a divorce, was struggling with the custody thing and the child support. I was like, man, why is he always crying, dude? I'll call him tomorrow. I found him hanging in a tree downtown Lapeer that morning. And it was devastating to me, so I started drinking again. I didn't want to feel, my best friend died. So I started drinking again a little bit, trying to keep it under control. But I was heartbroken. I had moved, before that I had lived in Port Huron, my wife and I. We'd let 12 or 15 people live with us at separate times. Almost every one of them died. I loved these men and women brothers and sisters of mine. Like, for real, like I loved them. Mike. Just so many names. I was hurting. I was broken. Watching these people die, I was mad at God, and running from fighting. Going to jail still all the time for my past, for not paying, for new charges, mostly fighting. And I was broken. But one day I get a phone call. I pick up the phone. I can tell it's my little girl in Florida. She's not making any sense. She can't talk, She's just screaming, Dad, no. I knew. I just fell right there on the kitchen floor, man. So I get in the truck, 100 miles an hour to Flint. There's my little girl, Megan, my firstborn. Her eyes are on her face. Her brain was so swollen it pushed them out of her head. She was Christmas shopping with her newborn baby, Haven, in Flint. And she ran into an old friend who said, let's go have some fun. This is when my life changed. 4 days of doctors, tests. I insisted they bring in new neurologists. Knew every day, everything. 4 days of holding her hand, 4 days of prayer, 4 days of them taking her blood out of her body and cooling it off and putting it back in. I knew she was gone the minute I walked in that room. I knew she was gone the minute I picked up that phone and heard my daughter on the other line. I didn't want to believe it, but the Lord told me. So, poor grandma. My poor little girl, man. Her sister, her babies. Mama. Nobody could be in the room at the end. They just didn't have it in them. So I had to be strong. It's just me and her, my head on her chest. When I heard her heart stop, slow and stop. That's the hardest thing I've ever went through in my life is hearing her heart stop. And then what? So my brother-in-law was driving me back to Saginaw from Flint. This is right after they took her down to the morgue. And it took everything in me not to open the back door of that car and jump out under the back tires of that car going down the freeway. Everything in me. So I went to a liquor store in Saginaw. And I bought about 20 fifths. 20. Rum, whiskey, tequila, vodka. I had this giant bar in my basement. I went down there and I filled it up. And I sat behind the bar and I put a bottle to my head. And that's what I did. Day in, day out, I drove my wife away. Ended up giving up on everything. We lost the house. Moved in with my sister. We didn't get along because I was full of hatred. I drove them away. They kicked me out. I moved in with my mother and drove everybody away. I Took off on a quad, a four-wheeler one night, drunk. And I had been just horrible, impossible to live with. I didn't want anyone to care about me anymore because it'd be easier for me to do what I was going to do if there wasn't anybody to hurt. So if I was mean to everybody and drove them away, they'd be happy when I was dead. They wouldn't be sad. I came back on the four-wheeler. My wife asked where I'd been. I'm like, get out of my way. And I pushed past her. She fell onto the bed, but she said, that's enough. And she called the police. This is in Kingston. The police were on their way, and I said, well, that's it for me. Now's my time. I don't have to do it. I'll get the cops to do it. So I put on a big coat. I went out in the front yard and waited for the police to show up. And when they got there, I told them I had a gun in my pocket and that I was going to kill them all. I didn't have a gun. For some reason they didn't believe me, and I went to jail. And because of my record, I got slammed, and I was in jail for a long time. My mother sold the house she lived in, all her property, everything, to get away from me, to get away from my wife, to get away from the drama. The family was in a shambles. Everything was, she'd lost her husband. My daughter died. I was a mess. I got out, I had nothing. My wife left me. She took the kids. My mom moved away. I'd estranged everybody I cared about. All my friends were dead. So while I was in the hospital, my mom sent her pastor up to see me. When I was in the hospital, with my daughter, and this Baptist pastor, Gabe Shady, he used to have a church here in Marlette, came to meet me. And he took a lot that night. I cussed him out. I told him what I thought about him and his God and everybody in his church. And I had a gun with me in the church at the whole time at the hospital, a pistol. And I was going to kill the dope dealer. And something he said about the Lord can use me made me stop. He's like, these kids need you, and the Lord can use you. So I didn't, because something he said made me just think about my living children, and that's it. But I put that bottle to my head in Saginaw. And I ended up in jail. So dope, so sick. I probably could have died in jail from alcohol withdrawals. My cousin Patrick, who taught me how to frame houses and all that, that's how he actually ended up dying. He quit drinking and was dead less than 24 hours later. He said he was going to cold turkey, and his body couldn't take it, and he died. So I get out, I have nothing. I have all these rules. We're going to let you out, but you have to drug test, alcohol test, mental health court, all this, and I'm still, Gabe Shady, the pastor, had met some people at Sanilac Rescue Mission and had known about him. So he took me out to this homeless shelter in Sandusky to take a look. And I said, there's no way, dude. I'm not doing it. So I don't care. I'm not going to a dang homeless shelter with a bunch of Bible thumpers. It's never going to happen. You're insane. I went out there, and I just, something about Jeff Kramer. I couldn't even talk when I was there. They gave me the tour, and the way he kept looking at me, I was crying the whole time. I was like, I'm not doing it. So I left the tour and I said, I'm not doing it. I'm not doing it. While I was in jail, by the way, I was done in jail for the stuff here in this county. I had a warrant for something I didn't pay in Lapeer County, so somebody sent me to Lapeer. At Lapeer, I decided I was going to kill myself too. I had the sheets ready and everything. For some reason, I was the only guy in the whole jail that got a cell all to himself. The Lord worked it out that way, so I was in a cell by myself, the only guy in all these pods. So I'm going to hang myself, you know? And I was so low, so broken, I couldn't eat. And the Lord, see, I don't want to seem crazy, man, but the Lord brought my daughter to me to talk to me in that cell. So I promised them both, I'll do whatever it is you want me to do. I promise you. So I remembered that promise, and I went to this shelter, this homeless shelter in Sandusky. And I'd like to say the Lord lifted me up and everything was beautiful, and it wasn't. I had to remember that promise every single day, multiple times a day. My wife was with another man, an abusive man, using drugs again. She had my babies with her, had moved my children into this man's house, and I had to deal with it, you know. So, all right, we're past the hard parts. Thank you. It gets better from here, I promise. That was rough. So, I had to remember that promise I made every day. I had to remember my hand on that Bible when I said those vows, sickness and health. And I've been pushing that on everybody, that addiction is a disease. And no one will listen to me. They'll be like, no, they're just selfish, you know, Facebook and all that, junkies. You know, my daughter died, Facebook said, good, another dead junkie. That's what her peers said. So it took a lot for me. I had to jump through a lot of hoops for the court. And I had to eat a lot of crow. You know, I had to humble myself. But I just had to keep sticking to that promise. And I ended up getting efficiency. I said, I don't want to move to Caro. I said, it's not happening. I'm not moving to Caro. I'm going to stay in, you know, I kind of like Sandusky, the small town. It's nice. I got in trouble in Tuscola County is the only reason I'm even messing with it. I cannot stand all the people, the fancy people in the court system and the jail. This is the worst jail I've ever been in my life. I still stick to that. This is the worst. I've been in them all. Oakland County, Macomb County, all of them. This jail is not good. It is not good. It is filthy. It's old. The food is horrible. The people, it's not good, you know. I said, I'm not going to Tuscola County. I'm not doing it. That promise, you know, that promise. I'm not going to Tuscola County. And I'm trying to find an apartment. I can't be in this shelter anymore. I got to move in my life. I have all this going on, 5 years of probation and all this stuff, you know. I can't find an apartment anywhere except Caro. So I get a 1-bedroom efficiency apartment. We're in a rundown house right here in Caro in town. And I'm trying to keep that promise to the Lord. And my heart is changing every day, you know. And my wife, I think, had given up. And I got the kids back. She was on drugs and she was being beaten horribly. Her eardrum was busted from this man she was with beating her. Every time I'd see her, it would be different, a missing tooth or a busted lip or black eyes. I wanted to be me and take care of it my way, you know. But I made that promise in jail to do what the Lord wanted me to do. The Lord wanted me to learn how to be a father. I got these 2 babies in an efficiency apartment. Little babies, dude. A tiny little 1-bedroom apartment. 2 years straight. No car, no nothing. I got one of those little wagons someone had given me. I don't know if you guys saw me around. You guys ever saw me around Caro, if you're from here? But so I'd go to Walmart all the way there with both children in that wagon. I do my grocery shopping, the laundromat, everything I had to do in life. I got them enrolled in school. They went to school. And it wasn't easy, but I was keeping that promise every single day, keeping that promise every day. And Jeff and I had become close friends, Jeff Kramer from Michigan House of Hope. And I went to men's encounter. And my wife is back, by the way. I went to men's encounter anyway. It changed my life. It wasn't anything about the encounter as much as it was all the men there coming together to pray for each other. All the men there praying. You cannot stop God when there's a group of people together praying correctly, fasting, praying for you and everyone there. You can't stop it. So it changed my life and it opened my heart a little more. And my wife just went to women's encounter, changed her life. We're praying together. What? Right, We're growing in the Lord, and my life is changing. They asked me to. Jeff thinks that I don't know what other people say and think, I don't tell him that I do know. But they wanted me to be the manager of this store here, this Hope Thrift. And Jeff said, we want you to be the manager. And I was like, no, there's no we. So I was thinking in my mind, there's no we, Jeff. You do. I'm sure the board is fighting it because there's a lot of people, they're going to be like, no, his big mouth, his attitude, all this is not going to be a good fit, and this and that. But, I didn't want to do it. Who wants to go make no money? I'm a carpenter. Who wants to go make no money working harder than carpentry? And if people think running that store is nothing, go look in the back of the truck I just drove in and unload that for a minute. And those are every day, It's like, but I'm just not fighting it anymore. That's what's changing my life. I'm not fighting it. I said, okay, Lord. I started a foundation for my daughter called The Father's Love. And I don't know what's going to become of it, but I know something. I know she didn't die for nothing. I go speak at the rehabs and try and share my experience, strength, and hope, But out of everything that's happened to me, I left out a lot, for you guys. For one, for time, and 2, because I don't want to dwell on it. I'll share it because that's who I am. And I came here to share this. My past experience in my life to show what is possible for a church to do. But on the other end, look what a church did to me. Look what people did to me in God's name. And not just me. Imagine all those other kids. I see them on Facebook. Kids I went to church with at that church. I see them on Facebook. They're lost, a lot of them still. Because of the church, when that church could have seen what was going on, because I know they knew, they had to have, people in my life could have seen what was going on and helped. And for a lot of people that come into the store and see this guy covered in tattoos wearing a tank top, like, don't judge a book, man. My heart is huge, and I have a huge heart for this community and the people in it. But especially for the lost. I've been homeless. I've been an addict. I've been to the bottom, lowest point of life. I've hung out. Those are my people, man. Those are the people I want to help. So that's why I took it. And because the Lord asked me to, but that's where my heart is, man. I want to help. So the store is a huge step towards wherever He wants me to be. I'm learning how to interact and grow with people in authority even that I've butted heads with my whole life. And now I see that the reason they're so aggressive and the reason they're so authoritative and overbearing is because they're hurting too, man. So I'm not there to learn how to be patient with them. I didn't go through all this in my life to learn how to be quiet. I'm there to help them. I'm not there just to help the homeless guy coming in needs a couple bucks. I'm not there just to help, the addict that needs to know how to get off of heroin. I'm there to help everybody, man. And they're there to help me. We can all learn from each other, And I have a huge heart for this ministry, for the mission, and for Men's Encounter. I'm going to become more involved in Men's Encounter now. I'm actually going to that as a volunteer, this next one. And, my relationship, I haven't found a church yet. I've been to a few, and politics were brought up or something else, and the message was not on your eternal soul. And why I asked the pastor to read that passage before I started is because I listen to people argue, man, all the time about things in the Bible, things in the book, doctrine, silly things, just silly things. And I'm like, what is the most important thing in that book? Well, Christ himself said what the most important thing is in that book. Your pastor has read it to you, read it to us. You love the Lord. I love the Lord with all my heart and soul, with all your heart. I do. Through it all, I was angry, sure. Through all of it, sure. But man, my heart was still full. I still loved him. I could never turn my back like I'd see other people do to the Lord, even when my daughter was laying there dead. Even when people said, I maybe could have helped her be healed if I had a better faith. I said, I didn't get angry. I wanted to just punch him right in the throat right there. It was like, there's some Jesus for you. There's some faith, but I can't, for some reason, since I was a little boy, when I was being raped, when I was being beaten, I was never, ever alone. I'd go to the railroad tracks and catch frogs, and stay down there. My parents would let me go for days on the weekends and just by myself, a little kid, camp. And the Lord was with me all the time. I was never lonely or afraid. He would just speak to me, I know he's real. Nobody has to convince me of anything, But the reason I like this ministry in Michigan House of Hope is because, there's different conflicting personalities, and there's conflict, There always is going to be where man is involved. But all these different denominations, Baptists, Catholics, Protestants, all these different churches, right? Was there 30 of them? 30 churches, Mike?
55 churches we're in contact with, about 25 to 30 are.
Yeah. 55 churches and then 25 or 30 active, right? They put all that doctrine, all that arguing aside and focus on one thing, right? Helping the homeless, helping the people in need, right? I want to be a part of that, man. When you can find that many churches to get along for anything, it's got to be something good, So I want to be part of it. Now, I had him read that passage because people argue about everything in the book. Everything in the Bible. The smallest thing. I spoke to someone who doesn't come to this church, who went to this particular church I'm standing in twice, and then they heard a pastor say that the water Jesus turned into wine had alcohol in it, and it wasn't new wine, grape juice, and so they'll never go back. I was like, that is sad. That's what I was thinking. I was like, that is sad to me. So I don't really have a whole bunch more to say, except that if I can do this, anybody can. And my goal when I came here today, when I agreed to do this, was to talk to the parents. If you got kids at home or grown children and you got problems with them or there's something, man, drop the pride. Drop it. Eat some crow. Call them, man. Call them. Who cares, dude? Who cares? You got to get them back in your life. It's too short. You got to reach out, man. You got to talk to them kids. You got to tell them you love them. And us men, we want to be macho. We want to do this and that. Well, blah, blah, blah. No, man, that's all a lie told to you by the devil, dude. Stop fighting. Bury your heart. Get up on a stage in front of a bunch of people that I feel like I need to protect myself from Baptists. That's how I feel my whole life, you know? But I don't feel like that anymore. That's what I felt. I'm like, I'm going to bare my soul. Instead of putting my fists up, man, I'm going to put them down. That's what we need to do with our kids, man. We need to drop all of it. All the fake lies the devil tells us about why we can't love them correctly, why we can't talk to them correctly, why we can't let it go is ridiculous. So if just one person calls their kid or hugs their kid a little bit more after they hear me today, then it was worth coming up here and bearing my soul. But it's about all I got for today.
Lord, we thank you that you always make a way. There's always a way. And it's your way that's the only way. And we thank you that you make that clear in your word. We thank you that you use people to reach out to help people. And I pray, Lord, this week we will be listening to you, to your Spirit, and that we will not fight you in any way, but always live your way and know that you will use us in great ways. Thank you for Jon's testimony. Thank you for how it encourages others to be a better father, to be more loving to others, and most of all, loving you with all our heart. In Jesus' name, amen.